Hey everyone, welcome back to Retro Reel Recaps. Today we're diving into the movie Revolver. It's a thrilling story about a man named Jake Green, who just got out of prison after 7 years. But here's the twist. Jake didn't waste his time in prison. He spent every moment learning and came up with a foolproof method using quantum mechanics to never lose at chess or gambling. Sounds cool, right? Let's get into it. The movie starts with Jake being released from prison after 7 long years in solitary confinement. Once he's out, he tries to get back to his old life. Soon we're shown a busy casino owned by a man named Dorothy Matcha. But here's the thing. Matcha is Jake's enemy, and the reason Jake went to prison in the first place. A man named French Paul tells Matcha that Jake has been released. Matcha responds by saying Jake is dangerous. 2 years pass. One day Jake walks into Matcha's casino. His brother Billy and his associates are with him. Jake goes to Matcha's casino with one goal: to humiliate Matcha in his own place. Things get intense. Paul, Matcha's right-hand man, warns him, "The stakes are high. Jake wants to play with you, but everyone's scared of him. He's come prepared, so maybe you shouldn't play." But Matcha isn't scared and invites Jake to play. Jake's plan is simple: win big, take Matcha's money, and ruin him. But here's the catch. Jake isn't as fearless as he seems. Because of his time in prison, he's developed claustrophobia, a fear of tight spaces. We see him in an elevator, and he's clearly scared. He tries to hide it though. He doesn't want anyone to know he's afraid, especially his associates. Still, he has to go up to the 25th floor. By the time he reaches the top, he's almost panicking, but he manages to keep it together. When the game starts, Jake does something surprising. He intentionally loses the first round. But after that, he starts winning, big time. Everyone's watching him, amazed. He wins a huge amount of money, cashes out, and leaves the casino with his brother, Billy, and associates. But as they're leaving, a mysterious man named Zach approaches Jake. He says, "Your life is in danger. You're going to need my help." Zach hands Jake a note and then walks away. Jake's left wondering what's going on. Jake starts walking down the stairs, but suddenly, everything goes dark, and he collapses, falling down the stairs. Later we see that the note Zach gave him said, "Use the elevator," which means Zach knew Jake would collapse because of his illness. Meanwhile, Matcha tells Paul, "We need to kill Jake. I saw it in his eyes. He wants revenge. We can't take any risks." Jake, after recovering, goes for a medical checkup. The doctor tells him he's seriously ill but doesn't say what the disease is. Jake returns home and finds a note under his door that says, "Pick this up." As he bends down to pick it up, gunshots are fired. The bullets miss Jake but kills his associates. It's clear someone placed the note there to save Jake's life. Amid all the gunshots at Jake's house, Zach rescues him and takes him to a safe place. Then, we see a confusing scene where Jake is being questioned. It becomes clear that Zach and his partner, Avi, have been manipulating Jake. They tell him his blood report is back, and the news is devastating. Jake has a very serious illness, and he only has 3 days left to live. Avi adds, "I don't think you'll even survive 3 days because a very dangerous person is after you. He's going to kill you soon. If you want to survive for 3 days, you'll need our help. We're ready to help you, but on 2 conditions. First, you'll give us all your money. Second, you'll have to follow our orders for the next 3 days and answer all our questions." Meanwhile, we're introduced to a hitman named Sorter, who works for Matcha. Sorter is an expert shooter. He tried to kill Jake earlier but missed. Matcha is shocked that Sorter missed his target. On the other hand, Jake is suspicious of Zach and Avi. He thinks they're trying to trick him. To be sure, he leaves and goes straight to the hospital to check the report himself. The lady doctor shows him the report, but Jake doesn't believe it. He thinks Zach and Avi tampered with it. To double-check, he takes the report to another doctor. This doctor confirms the same thing. Jake has a very serious illness and doesn't have much time left. Jake is in disbelief. He pulls out his gun and points it at the doctor, demanding the truth. But even with a gun to his head, the doctor says the same thing. Finally, Jake has no choice but to believe it. He goes to the bank, withdraws all his money, and returns to Zach and Avi, agreeing to their conditions. Zach and Avi explain their plan. They're in the loan business, giving money to people. But they're not ordinary lenders. They give money to the exact people Jake needs to deal with. Jake's life is hanging by a thread, and now he's under the control of this mysterious duo. Zach, Avi, and Jake meet the person they need to give money to and hand over the cash. On their way back, Avi asks Jake, "Tell me right now about your relationship with Matcha." Jake starts explaining his past. Jake says that Matcha had 3 people working for him. Matcha used these 3 whenever he needed something in gambling. There was a big match coming up, but before the match, these 3 lost their advantage. They needed money, and everyone knew Jake was very good at cards. So they offered him a job, saying he should work for them. But Jake didn't want to work for Matcha, so he refused. Then, things took a dark turn. Matcha's people went to Jake's brother's house and started threatening him and his wife. Jake had no choice but to agree and went to play the game. But during the game, things got ugly. Matcha's people started misbehaving with Jake. This made Jake furious, so he pulled out his gun and shot one of them in the leg. Chaos broke out. The shooting continued for a long time, and before anyone knew it, all of Matcha's money was gone. The police arrived and arrested Jake. Matcha was worried Jake might tell the truth about what happened, so the people who had threatened his brother started fighting. At Billy's house, his wife died in chaos. Jake didn't take anyone's name during the investigation, so he was sent to jail. He was given a choice: 14 years in jail or 7 years in solitary confinement. Jake chose solitary confinement. The story shifts back to the present. Zach takes Jake to a hotel where he'll be safe. Meanwhile, Matcha is furious about Jake's actions and starts planning his revenge. He meets Lily Walker, who works for the unseen crime kingpin, Sam Gold. Sam Gold is the ultimate figure in the underworld. Everyone wants to be like him. Matcha makes a deal with Lily to supply him with cocaine. But Lily warns Matcha they don't forgive anyone's mistakes. This makes Matcha nervous and paranoid. Jake then starts telling Zach and Avi about his time in jail. While in solitary confinement, he had 2 amazing people in the cells next to him. One was a chess master, and the other was an expert in quantum mechanics. They would communicate by writing notes on books. Over time, Jake learned how to win any game from their secret messages. After some time, Jake found out that both of them were planning to escape, and they promised to take him with them. But when the time came, they escaped without him, leaving Jake to serve his full sentence. After 2 more years in prison, Jake was finally released. But when he returned home, he discovered that all his money had been taken. However, they left a note for him that said, "You are as smart as you think you are. You should play with your intelligence." Jake took this advice to heart. He started using the lessons he learned in jail and began playing games everywhere, winning a lot of money. The story continues, and we see Jake reluctantly following Zach and Avi's orders. He lends money to people on their behalf. However, many of these people are innocent and can't repay the loans. They beg Jake to reverse the deal. Jake isn't a violent person. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. Time passes, and when Jake returns, Zach and Avi take him to a place where there's a painting on the wall. They break the wall and take a hidden vault. The vault contains the cocaine that Matcha planned to give to Sam Gold as part of their deal. When Matcha finds out what's happened, he's furious. He immediately tells Paul to arrange a meeting with Lord John, the only person who can provide the same amount of drugs on short notice. Lord John is Matcha's rival drug dealer. Both gangs meet at a hotel where the exchange is supposed to happen. But things take a turn. Zach, Avi, Jake, and their team release gas into the air conditioning, and everyone in the room becomes unconscious. Once again, they steal all the drugs. When Lord John finds out, he thinks Matcha has cheated him, and he becomes his enemy. Meanwhile, Jake is in a tough spot. He feels exploited by Zach and Avi and can't decide whether to escape their control or not. During their next assignment, Avi gives Jake a gun and tells him to kill a man who hasn't returned the money. But Jake doesn't want to kill an innocent person, so he points the gun at Avi and pulls the trigger. However, he realizes there's no bullet in the gun. Angry, Avi hits Jake on the head, knocking him out. When Jake wakes up, he finds himself back in his hotel. Zach calls him and says, "Today is the 3rd day, but you're still alive. You should go see a doctor." Jake listens and goes to the doctor. At the doctor's office, Jake is told that he's perfectly fine and must have received a wrong report earlier. Relieved but confused, Jake calls Zach and demands answers to all his questions. Zach assures him that he'll get the answers. Meanwhile, Paul brings in another associate who figures out that everything that's happened is because of Jake's manipulation. He tells Matcha everything, and Matcha is furious. He says Jake should not be left alive. Jake, determined to get answers, finds Zach and Avi in a bathtub. Zach warns Jake to leave immediately because Matcha's people are looking for him. They'll shoot him as soon as they see him. But Jake ignores the warning. Soon after, Macha's people find Jake and start chasing him. During the chase, one of them accidentally falls and dies from a gunshot. When the others see his dead body, they stop chasing Jake. This gives Jake the chance to escape. At night, Jake goes to Zach and Avi and confronts them. But Avi tells Jake, "We know you've been lying to us. You've never told us the whole truth." He then reveals something shocking. As soon as Jake got out of jail, 3 people caught him. They were Macha's men, and they were trying to kill Jake because they lost their jobs because of him. Macha had fired them, but Jake came up with an idea. He promised to pay them 4% of any money they brought to him. They got greedy and started bringing money to Jake, who fraudulently gave them 4% out of their own money. Soon, the word spread, and a lot of people invested with Jake. He took their money and started giving back 4% out of their own funds. This way, a huge amount of money gathered with Jake. When Macha heard about this, he also invested a large amount without knowing it was a scam. He asked for a 5% return, but as soon as Macha invested, Jake took all the money and ran away on a vacation with his brother, Billy, and niece. The 3 people who invested Macha's money got caught. Paul tortured them, but they couldn't return the money. Eventually, Paul killed them on Macha's orders. Jake ended up taking a huge amount of Macha's money. Meanwhile, something else is happening. Lord John tells his girlfriend to kill Macha. She disguises herself as a waitress, but before she can kill Macha, Sorter spots her and shoots her. We see a darkly funny situation here. Macha's bodyguards quickly cover him to protect him, but they don't know who tried to shoot him. Macha, lying on the ground, can see the waitress who is trying to kill him. In her last breaths, she keeps shooting at Macha but misses. Eventually, she fires a shot that hits Macha's finger. But Macha finally kills John's girlfriend. At the same time, Sorter kills the driver who brought John's girlfriend. Now we see Avi and Zach with Jake. They make Jake realize that he was following the wrong path and that he must purify himself from all his evils. When Jake hears this, he feels he needs to atone for his sins. He takes out all his money and donates it. After doing this, he goes to Macha's bedroom at night and apologizes. He says, "I cheated you with your money, but now I've donated all that money in your name." After saying this, he leaves. Jake wants to overcome his fear, so he decides to face it head on. He goes back into the elevator, the very place that terrifies him, but the elevator stops on the 13th floor. Voices begin echoing in Jake's head. It's the devil inside him, his own greed and fear. But Jake fights it. He controls himself and the elevator starts moving again. When Jake reaches the ground floor, he sees Macha pointing a gun at him. But Jake knows something important. The devil has taken over Macha, but he has control over his own devil. So, instead of being afraid, Jake walks away. Seeing this, Macha gets upset and starts crying. The next morning, Macha is all over the news. Everyone is talking about him, and people are praising him because he's donated a lot of money. But Macha is deeply disturbed by how things have turned out. Meanwhile, Paul tells Macha that someone has stolen all his drugs. Macha gets furious and says, "Find him." Paul sends all his men to Jake's brother Billy's house. There, they start torturing Billy. Billy had already hidden his daughter, Rachel, because he knew something like this might happen. Eventually, they hear Rachel crying and find her hiding spot. They bring her out and start teasing her. Sorter, who's there, can't bear to see this. He gets very angry and starts killing Macha's men. A shootout begins, and in the end, only one man is left alive. This man kills Sorter and takes Rachel to Macha. Meanwhile, Macha is in a meeting with Lily. She tells him, "Sam Gold is very angry with you. We will never work with you again." After saying this, she starts to leave, but Macha shouts at her in frustration. Next, Jake goes to Zach and Avi. Jake and Avi start playing chess. During the game, Avi says, "I want to tell you something. When you were in jail, there were 2 people next to you. They could have taken you out of jail, but you weren't ready at that time. So we left you there, and you did wonders after that." Jake now realizes that Zach and Avi were the 2 people in the neighboring cells during his solitary confinement. They've been trying to help him all along. Jake confronts Zach and Avi, realizing that they represent his inner demons, his fears and doubts. He overcomes them, symbolically defeating his inner Sam Gold, the voice of negativity and self-doubt. But Jake is still worried about his niece, Rachel, who is still with Macha. So Jake goes to Macha with all the drugs. He places the drugs in front of Macha and tells Rachel to stay calm. He assures her that nothing will happen to her. Masha gets paranoid again because he sees that Jake isn't scared at all. This makes Masha feel small and powerless. In a moment of despair, Masha pulls out his gun and shoots himself. And that's the end of this deep and thought-provoking story about greed, fear, and the battle within ourselves. Thanks for watching this recap with us. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Retro Real Recaps for more movie breakdowns. See you in the next video.